My book, Of Great Worth, is a novel about what happens when young couples' marriage is in crisis. It is a story I know too well because, much like the lead character in the book, I too had similar problems, and I think many other women do too. When my first two daughters were about 4 and 2, I was an extremely busy working wife and mother. My husband worked long hours at his law firm. I was lonely. I never had fun anymore. And I felt like all the child rearing and housework was left up to me, and my husband didn't care that I was working myself to the bone. In my husband's mind, however, everything was just great. I would say, "I'm really unhappy," or "I really think we need to go to counseling," to which he would reply, "You're just tired," or "Why can't you ever be happy? You live in a nice house in a beautiful neighborhood, you're just selfish." I started to believe that something was wrong with me, and if I tried harder and complained less, then everything would be okay. All the fairy tales tell us that men love to help a woman in distress. Well, my theory is that men do have a sixth sense when they are in the company of a woman in distress. But unfortunately, sometimes those men that want to rescue us, they're not our husbands. I've never had before, nor since, so much attention from men. You would think all the attention was nice. But the fact was, I wasn't interested in them. I wanted that attention from my husband. I wanted him to notice me. When I was with my customers, on the outside, I was friendly, outgoing, and of course always smiling. But on the inside, I was dead. I was depressed, and I felt completely hopeless. Often I would go and get in my car and cry. I wanted my emptiness to go away. I wanted to go back to how it was when we first married. I decided what I needed to do was just to get away and visit one of my best friends, a single girl named Diane. She was a very successful model in New York City. It is hard to explain exactly what happened. We would be in restaurants and men would just come up to us and sit down and talk. And looking back on it, they were probably just trying to meet Diane, but at the time, it felt like they found me absolutely fascinating. I met this one man. He was handsome and charming and very sophisticated. And I think that for him, after constantly being around sophisticated, interesting, and wealthy people, he found this Southern girl refreshing, but he basically swept me off my feet. For the next several days, he showered me with everything I had been lacking: attention, love, words of encouragement, affection, quiet dinners, and his time. But eventually reality set in and I had to return to my life back home. I told my husband, "This marriage is no longer working out for me, and I've met someone in New York and I want to date him." This went against everything I had ever known or experienced. I was raised in a loving home with parents who loved each other. I was brought up to understand very clearly that marriage was sacred. My parents were married for 54 years before my father died. My husband suggested counseling, but at that point, I didn't want to go to counseling. I had been going through this despair for over a year, and I was ready to move on. In my mind, there was no longer any love to resurrect. There was only one tiny problem: guilt. Guilt about my husband, guilt about my children, guilt about my parents and his parents, and yes, guilt about God. Although I didn't have that much guilt about God because I told myself that He was behind all of this. He saw my suffering and He provided the answer. Still, I was consumed by guilt. It was not supposed to be like this. I was sitting in church, not listening to the sermon, and it was really only then that I poured my heart out before God. I told Him how sorry I was that I was letting Him down. I knew He didn't like divorce, and I felt like a complete failure as a wife, as a mother, and as a human being. I told Him I just couldn't do it anymore, that I was going to divorce my husband. I basically said, if you want a different outcome, you have to do something, because my mind was made up. The interesting thing is, in that moment, I really didn't have the faith that He could or would do anything. I can really point to that basic prayer as the beginning of this amazing journey. God truly performed a miracle, and He blessed my husband and me. He blessed our marriage, and He blessed our family exceedingly above what we could have imagined. He revealed Himself to both of us. He restored us, and He forgave us and healed us, and He even gave us 2 additional gifts and 2 more children. I found myself in a Bible study. I joined a prayer group. God constantly put people in my path who ministered to me and encouraged me. My husband and I began to talk with honesty and sincerity about what had gone wrong. We went on dates. We went away together. We started over, and at times it was difficult. We had a counselor, but because God had gone before us, we only needed 4 sessions with her. But those sessions were vital and so helpful. As we kept taking one step after another, there was a change in him, and there was a change in me. There was a change in both of us. The counselor helped him to see that I was feeling devalued, that I was last on his list. But she showed me that often he wanted to help around the house, and he wanted to help with the children, but if he tried and he didn't do it my way, well, the right way, then I would criticize him or redo it myself. So guess what? He wasn't so interested in helping me the next time. So many things help to bring us back together, but it is true what they say. God is the glue. He is the one who restores, who reconciles, and who cements our relationships. God wants our marriages not just to survive, but to thrive, and God still performs miracles. My husband and I have now been married over 28 years. He is my best friend. He makes me laugh. He is the best date. We have 1,000 private jokes. He is my biggest fan, and quite frankly, I cannot imagine life without him. I love my husband.